you still say what?
Can I still say Happy New Year? Happy
Yes, of
New
course you
Year.
can. Good to have you. Welcome back. How are you?
I am not too bad. I am not too bad.
Uh,
But I always wonder when you get, like, when you have to stop saying Happy New Year. Is it February?
I think February 1st is a good place to kind of get rid of it. I think February 1st. I think you can keep saying
Okay.
I think you can keep saying it up until February 1st. I think if you shut it down on the 15th, I think you're okay too. The 15th of January. You know what I'm saying? Once you get through those first 2 weeks, I always say the 15th, it's the midpoint of the month, number one, and then number two, it's 2 weeks have passed, so you're kind of set up and good to go. Happy New Year to you, by the way. We've gotten a chance to talk from time to time in between then and now. But it's good to have you
Mm-hmm.
back as always. As we look into the crystal ball, there could be some real big developments, by the way, Jane, in regards to CDL reformation. That ELDT, which many people just a couple of years ago were trying to push back on, may now expand. They're going to take a long, hard look at CDL schools and kind of determine who's a mill and who isn't. And I wouldn't be surprised. And it's something I want to talk to you about, but I know you got some other stuff on your mind. I do want to talk about, given your own space and given what you guys do over at Carrier's Edge, I wanted to have a conversation about what you think a properly trained truck driver is to enter into a space where they can actually properly absorb a healthy trucking company's culture. Because you guys deal with best fleets, and that kind of combination of the great trucking companies, the best fleets to drive for, often have their pick of the best incoming, freshly trained drivers to drive for them. I'm going to kind of start off there, but there's some places I know you want to go to. And good morning, by the way.
Good morning. Well, let me just say that December is all interviews, right? Until Christmas, then we kind of cut it off. But like we do a lot of interviews in December, and then for the Best Fleet to Drive For program, and then scoring. The new year starts with scoring. Like that is all I do. And so I'm reading all of these different things that carriers are saying and trying to figure out what they're saying. Sometimes it's a little difficult. But one of the things that we score is new entrant programs, and I've been the primary one scoring new entrant programs for the last 10 years. So I've seen, like, especially like from before the pandemic to now, I've seen a big change. And I think just a little promo, we are going to be announcing the Best Ways to Drive For Top 20 on January the 27th, Tuesday, January the 27th, last Tuesday in January. So get on to Facebook and look up the Best Ways to Drive For, and we will be telling you who are our top 20, who's in our Hall of Fame, and who our fleets to watch are.
By the way, if you have any time at 6 o'clock in the morning, you should come by. I'm saying 6 in the morning because it's 6 in the morning your time. You should drop by on the show and tell us. I'm just saying, not saying, just saying. Just want to put that out there.
6 in the morning, we're still doing the announcement. Like that's when we do the announcement. So if I can come on a little like 20 after,
That'd be great. Actually, just drop in and let us
I
know
can
what
do that.
we could do. If you make the announcement
Yeah.
at 6 a.m., we'll get you on 20 after. I actually have, strangely enough, a packed show that day, but that one particular area I have open, so we'll get you to drop in after you do that. That would be absolutely terrific. But you've been noticing patterns and trends so that you're able to kind of talk about
Yes.
something interesting here without giving away the main event. So
Yes.
go on.
Oh, yeah. There's tons and tons of trends. And the biggest thing that I've noticed over the last couple of years is that carriers are not in the CDL school business anymore. They were when the whole driver shortage became a primal scream in the industry. It was everybody had new entrant programs. Everyone was registered as an ELDT, and it was like people were asking us if we were doing it and wanting to somehow, I don't know, do a make your own school kind of thing. We didn't do it. We didn't jump on that bandwagon because we didn't have a full ELDT curriculum, which includes things like, what the dashboard looks like. Like it's some really simplistic things that we decided not to do. We do have an ELDT program for hazmat. So if you want to get your hazmat endorsement, we do have a separate one because you can do that. But we decided to never do it, but all kinds of carriers actually did. And so we were trying to score ELDT programs. Like we were trying to figure out how to, like there was the under 21 program, there was people doing the whole school, there were people who had more finishing schools, and it was really kind of difficult to figure out, how much to give people when they are running a school as opposed to fleets who aren't. And then fleets were saying, oh, but you know what? The turnover is much higher if you have a school. So we were looking at that as well as like, is turnover actually higher when you have a school? And we found that not really. If you're running a good one, then there's a couple of things that I can tell you about what makes it successful or makes it what kind of reduces the turnover.
I want to really quickly though. That's a clever out. And I'm gonna pick on some carriers here without naming any names. Oh well, we got rid of that because our turnover was actually higher. And you want to say a couple of things there. Well, first of all, was your turnover higher because in that long on board? Because the thing is, let's be honest with you. If you have a real kind of training program and you're introducing people to your carrier, your fleet, you're also giving them a real close inside look at your culture. Because the way you kind of handle training is a real in-depth look at what you and I, because man, it drives Jane and I crazy, by the way. Even when we're not on the air, we complain about people dropping that word culture. But I'm telling you right now, if you run a training program inside of your own carrier or your own fleet, it is a preview of the culture that is to come once you get actually onto the roads and into the pipeline of one of their drivers. So if you are losing people for that reason, maybe it's because everything else is rotten to the core, just saying, putting it out there. Or maybe it's expensive to actually run a training program and do it properly, and you just don't want to pay that money. So that strikes me as, given the fact that we don't see real turnover occurring from this, what we're really seeing is you, having never had to spend money for the better part of 50 years in this industry training people because the Army, the farms, and the Teamsters took care of it for you, now find yourself unwilling to pay for what you got for free for the better part of 50 years. How did I do, Jane?
I think about 70% because
All right.
they some places did try to do new entrant programs and realized that they're just not equipped. Some of them had existing relationships with CDL schools, and that is one of the things that's really good.
I agree.
Creating a relationship with a good school and kind of having a bridge program between the school and the carrier, where people can go visit the carrier. Sometimes the carrier brings over the school is using the carrier's equipment, so they're much more linked, I guess, is a good thing. A lot of them find out that it's really expensive, and some of them will keep on with that expense because they really believed in the idea that we need to create our own truck drivers for the industry. Some of them kind of went in there, it's too expensive, and decided not to. Some of them really persevered up until, this year, and spent a lot of money because they would give students like scholarships. They would have really good payment plans. I started looking at how students were paying back the carrier for their training, and scoring them on that, because there was a big difference. Are you an indentured servant for 2 years? Are you given kind of a scholarship? Are you what is the payment plan? So I think that it was never matured properly, the whole idea of carriers and schools. And I know that over the last couple of years, I kind of told you a couple of the good ones. So I know that Boyle Transportation, even though they don't have a new entrant program, they have a really good training program, and they're one of the the Hall of Fame. Garner has a really good one, and they do a lot of new entrant.
Oh, Garner's
They
terrific.
were doing the under 21. Yeah, their new entrant program was really really good. And they did not do their own school though. The one company that really tried to do there were two, American Central Transport and Halver Lines in Superior, Wisconsin. American Central Transport's in Kansas City. And they both were really putting a big effort into and spending a lot of money on trying to have a new entrant program where people were really learning the industry properly. And both of them have stopped it now just because the expenses just like from everything getting expensive now, they stopped. They were kind of the holdouts. I think there's one left in the best fleets, and they're actually like sort of it's a wholly owned subsidiary. So it's really changed.
Yeah, and by the way, like I said, I want to make sure I not correct myself, but kind of clarify myself here too. I also, as you know, I mean, you've listened to so many of these episodes. How many times have we had the conversation with one training program, whether they come from the CVTA or the NAPF TDS, or actually have like legitimate, like foundational kind of learning programs? How many times have we actually talked to them about the partnerships they've forged with local trucking companies? That model, by the way, I think is successful. And I'm glad you brought up the indentured servitude thing too, because there is one model that I think is completely okay and another that I do think is an indentured servitude. The one I don't have a problem with is you guarantee us 2 years of your employment here, stable employment, we write that bill off. If you decide that you want to bolt for greener pastures, you owe us money. And I don't have a problem with that if it's a contract entered into. Where the problem starts is when they start deducting stuff from your check. You know what I'm saying? That's when those kind of deals and those kind of operations, it's just a matter of a great reminder as well, too, that nobody except for Dean Croak, yourself, me, and the people on this channel remind people when they first start into this industry. I have a joke that says, if you begin with lawyers, you stay as friends. If you end with lawyers, you don't. You know, and it's a...
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that it's all kind of experimental. You know, the CDL schools that were being run by the carriers, it's not like they had a business model that were tried and true for 30 years. They were trying to figure it out. They were like, okay, everybody's told us there's a driver shortage, and we see it. We see that it's more difficult to hire good drivers. So how do we do this? How do we help out the industry? How do we make this happen? So, and that's what, like, a lot of trucking companies are like that. They're like, okay, we'll do this ourselves. So it never matured. It never really got a chance to kind of fully be formed.
I wanted to ask you this question, and like I said, you've done a lot of deep diving into this, and this, by the way, it's invaluable. And like I said, I hope that there are other people out there in the industry, particularly in the CVTA and the NAPF TDS, who actually are, you know, doing the same sort of work. Because the thing is, too, acquisition seems to me, you know, like finding a partner. Were there any models where somebody saw a couple of schools in their area and like, man, these guys really know what's going on. Why don't we just purchase them, or why don't we form some kind of really bonded partnership with them? Now, you've mentioned that, but was there ever any big attempt to say, you know, rather than trying to start a training program ourselves, why don't we go buy a training program and attach it to that? Was there any models that followed that particular approach? I looked, by the way.
One.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think one, maybe. I'm not totally sure, and I'm thinking of one specifically because this is the wholly owned subsidiary, so I'm wondering if it is. I have to check. But mostly it's just close ties. But that has been done for years and years and years. That is the one that I think is the winner because it is tried and true. It's not okay, here we're gonna go and put a show on in the barn.
Yeah, and I think, by the way,
Do you get that reference? Okay, do you get that reference?
Oh my
The
God!
line on the bar?
When Mickey and Judy show up, I'll let you know if I get that reference. Of
Yes.
course, I get that reference. By
Okay.
the way,
All
oh
right.
my God!
Oh no, because I've used that reference with people, and they're like looking at me like I'm crazy.
By the way, I'm gonna make you
Am I
all.
that old?
I'm gonna make you laugh, Jane. So Ben Greenberg was just on from the NCTA, from the North Carolina Trucking Association, and we had so much to talk about and unpack, we never got to it. My first real experience with North Carolina was the Highlands Summer Playhouse. Was actually a beautiful theater up in Highlands, North Carolina. It was a renovated barn. And that was part of the gag. They actually renovated the barn and turned it into a genuine bona fide theater. So the barn reference makes perfect sense. Trucker Boson, by the way, says Werner you C1 when I started in 2020. I'm sorry, 2000, and that was a 1-year commitment that they asked of Trucker Boson. Thank you, by the way, buddy, for that contribution. That does help kind of clarify things. I did want to kind of pivot here and talk about the idea of if you in fact form a partnership with a CDL
Hmm.
school, which is a model I actually believe in and agree with. I think it's a terrific one. What you can do is you can create a nexus. If it's a publicly funded community college or vocational tech school, it suddenly means that you have a private company then engaging in a relationship with a state or municipal run institution, which means that the two of them can form a powerful nexus to then go to the legislature of that state with any sort of programs or ideas. That is a very powerful association that can be created. And I'm kind of curious, and I'm asking you to rhapsodize here, the idea of the culture on a college campus or a vocational tech school, the best run ones, tend to be pretty spectacular. Do you see opportunities for the culture of the program bleeding into the culture of the company and then creating something unique and new in regards to that bridge you talked about? And I'm asking for speculation here, and I'm buying you time because that's an unexpected question.
No, it's okay. I have not heard it put like that. Because I've heard your show, like I've listened to a number of your shows at where for the vocational schools especially, and I think that is a completely untapped. I think the industry has really not tapped that properly. I think that the industry tends to kind of dance around it. They'll go and do a touch a truck, and they'll do like school visits, and they'll kind of say, hey, you can have a job in the industry, and it's great. But there's not very many of them that make a real concerted effort to really, partner with a school. They will partner with a CDL school, but not necessarily with vocational schools. And I think that is a really big gap. And that would be an interesting experiment, and to see how that goes. Because when they talk to me, when the companies talk to me about how they work with the school, it's kind of like a matchmaking thing almost. They kind of go to they'll visit the school, they'll talk about their culture, they'll talk about what it's like, they'll have the students visit their terminal and talk about what the job's like and that kind of thing. But I don't hear that much about kind of merging the cultures. I just want to tell you that what I do hear about a lot is that to be really successful, you have got to talk to them about the life. Students will quit in 2 weeks if they have not been properly prepped for what it's going to be like on the road. And that is a secret to success.
By the way, I have an idea that I've bounced around in my head, and since I don't do this for a living, I don't feel like I'm giving away like a gold mine here, but I do think it's something that is worth an experiment. Do you know what a professor of practice is at a university, a college, a VOTech, or any sort of trade school? Have you ever heard that term, a professor of practice?
Is that someone who's still working in the industry?
You're getting there, and by the way, that's part of it as well too. A professor of practice is exactly that. It's a person who's been brought in to a university who actually practices to some level the profession or the major that is being taught. They, in turn, are not expected to publish. Their publication is taken care of by the fact that they are actually working in said industry. I think that there's an opportunity through that model for a trucking company and a vocational tech or a college to set up where, let's just say that you have an expert trainer on boarder who works at your company. What you do is you enter into an agreement of partnership so that half the salary is the professor of practice salary and the other half of the salary is, in fact, because they're allowed to do that as a professor of practice, make money elsewhere, that they in turn have a job with the carrier. They are then given an office as an instructor on staff for the CDL program, and they become that the bridge you talked about, so that you got basically you're helping the company out by giving them a trainer who moves back and forth between both places. They function as a trainer and an on-boarder at the company while at the same time functioning as a resource for the students going on the CDL program, which means the partnership is then emblematic of the human being who is then given an office and who's also able to kind of merge both cultures to a large degree. Am I making sense? And I'm wondering if that exists already, and if anybody knows of those kind of models, let me know. But that's one of the ideas after all the conversations we've had that I wanted to bounce against you.
I think I think there are programs. There definitely used to be. I'm not sure if there are any more, because ELDT really muddied the waters, and everybody had to start doing things a certain way, and so they were trying to meet those criteria. But there used to be a more, I think I've heard of that, where somebody from the trucking company was actually teaching at the school at some level. So it is not unheard of, and I think we could do more of that. I think we have so many driver trainers now. Like driver trainers have really, like an actual driver doing on-road training, that has skyrocketed. Like that has become a career path. I actually was calculating how much money drivers were making, and that's all over the place. That needs to be standardized. But driver trainers and using your driving pool as a way to educate newbies is really, really popular. So if you have a driver or a safety person, the staff trainers kind of, going between the school and the company, I think that is a great model if you're doing it properly. Like, this is all with the caveat that everybody is doing it properly and not just saying, okay, put it into this gear, back up, okay, you're good.
Well, I mean, the thing is, too, though, and I'm not sure if the model works except in like an instance where you have, and there are programs, by the way, that are 8 weeks. But this is one of the ways that people can supplement each other and really kind of belie cost in this matter. Imagine the fact that 2 of those weeks, that occasionally exceptional students who are good to go get a chance to do a genuine ride-along with a truck driver who, in fact, is also a trainer, who is also a professor of practice. Good God Almighty. I mean, and the content that you could generate from that as well, too, because you set up cameras properly inside of the cab as you are demonstrating to a young driver what he or she is supposed to do and not to do, and also get a sense of what this life is like. One of the hardest things with the lifestyle stuff is that people don't get a sense of what they're getting into and whether they take to it as well. Jane, I can't believe it. I knew this would happen. Anytime we have now done 2 guests where we have talked about a rough outline and found ourselves at the end of it all. Do you have any resolutions, by the way, Jane, before we get out of here? Any New Year's resolutions other than avoiding my calls when they show up?
I don't do that. You're usually calling me when I'm in a meeting.
You don't avoid my
that,
calls. I'm making a joke here, actually, because the fact is a matter of, like, you always answer the phone. You always get back to me. So I'm thinking, like, oh my God, it's Jimmy again. Yeah.
So I don't do New Year's resolutions. I usually try to have a direction. So I did not have a good 2025. 2025 was a difficult year. So I'm going to say that not my resolution, but my direction is kind of wellness. Like, go stop working.
Oh, I like
stop
that.
working. Do more with gardening. Do more outside. like make sure, get more of my steps in kind of thing. But that's my direction, but I don't have a resolution.
Wellness, by the way, Lindsay always asks this question. We got to roll out the red carpet because Lindsay is coming. The other question is, and this might put you on the spot. Lindsay's always looking for that word of the year. By the way, we all get two this year. So, do you have a word of the year that you're going to be holding close and tight to your life?
I no, that is putting me on the spot. I can't think of it. But
Oh,
if I think of it, I'll email it to you, and then you can. But I think wellness. I think that's the word.
by the way, I was going to say you've got it. Well, I tell you what, we'll use wellness as a placeholder unless it takes, and then we'll just substitute something else out for it. By the way, always engaging, always fun, and always informative. Jane Jazrawy. We could use all those words as well too. Of Carrier's Edge. Hey guys, check out Carrier's Edge. By the way, if you want to get that hazmat certification, that's where you can go. By the way, there's a whole bunch of other great stuff over there that really can get you up to speed and keep your education an ongoing concern. Good enough for everybody, other professions that are high skill and high grade. Good enough for you as well. Thank you, Jane.